Had to do the if you could you hear that music?
Very low, yes, a little bit.
I had the I like to I never do troll in the beginning of these things. I don't even do music in the beginning of them, but I wanted to see if you could recognize that song I was playing. It's the from that movie Holes. So I was like,
Okay.
yeah, you know what? That's a good throwback right there and a good intro jam. But man, thank you for taking the time to do this. I always give the cliche intro of, "Oh, your time is just it's so appreciated," but it really is, man, because it's kind of a little backstory to your the way I found your show was I've been in the middle of moving for months now, and finally I'm down in Florida, and I found your show one night earlier this year, like at random, and I don't even remember what the fight was or what was going on, but I remember it cracking me up. It was late night and I got on the chat and I was just like, these people are my kind of people. And then I moved down here in the first 3 weeks I was in Florida. I was spending it by myself waiting for my girlfriend to come from California. So as you can imagine, some loneliness down here and getting to know the area. It was just nice to have another voice with me in this apartment because, sitting here just going mad playing, ping pong in your head with all these different things you got to do. I appreciate that for sure, man. And it's also, you guys, something that Jess said one time on your show that's very true is that you're not about the drama, as we were just saying in the intro. Never expect to get on here and hear you guys, are caught up in beef with this person, you're roasting that person because that's not what the fans are really looking for. I guess some people, but that's certainly not what I'm going for. And that's what I appreciate you guys. You're not out here trying to roast people harder than Lizzo throwing down bratwurst at a Grammy after party. So I definitely appreciate the time today, man. And it always feels like when I have guests from the combat world onto these podcasts, there's some story that's tied to the week that I have them on. But just before I jumped on this thing with you, I'm seeing that there's a brawl with George Masvidal's team and Nate Diaz for their boxing match that I think, like, what percentage of MMA fans even knew that was supposed to be there was a press conference today. And of course, Conor's story of Monday, his, whatever's going on with him, it's just such a crazy time right now. Not to mention last weekend and a couple weeks ago, there was, Tyson Fury. If we're really getting into different, yeah, exactly, right there. George, man, I saw him bloody somebody up in that because I was watching it very fast, but it's just a crazy time to be a combat fan. I got to get your thoughts though to start on what did you think of the Dustin Poirier fight last weekend?
Okay, so wow, this is a lot, and thank you for having me on over here and the kind words. To backpedal though on the beef thing, there was a lot of beef in the beginning of this channel, and it's so funny. I saw you interviewed Luke Thomas, and he was the first person that I went after when we started the channel. I actually showed up at Sirius XM. I trolled him. I had him on our stream. He did a little interview on our channel, and we kind of, cooled off a little bit. I trolled Luke really hard in the beginning. We started this like 8 years ago. And then when we did this, no one else was really doing it. You brought up like the gurus and all this other stuff. There was no one else around. Like 8 years ago, 2016, it was just basically, you had your Joe Rogan and then you had your, media outlets. That was it. But there was no like interactive commentary, any of that stuff going on. So that's why we started the channel. But it's funny that you said the beef. We've slowed down with the beefs. I've spoken to people behind the scenes, and I talk shit, but it's not as much. Now, to answer your question about Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev, not surprised. I'm a big Islam guy. I like Dustin. I like Dustin a lot, but not as much as Islam. I got to be honest with you. I think Islam is such a special athlete. Even on the way up, I thought this guy was going to be bigger than Habib. Habib and his father said the same, that this guy is something special. And now we're starting to see it, how he can weather a storm, like he started off heavy, kind of gassed a little. He had the staff going on or whatever, and wound up submitting Dustin late. I mean, phenomenal performance by Habib. And I don't think Dustin's done. I think Dustin will take another shot at something else, not a title, but novelty fights. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it really didn't surprise me, the outcome of that fight. And, Islam, he is more well-rounded, I think, than Habib, because you go into a fight with Habib when he was in his prime. And, I mean, that was exactly what Conor was saying in the press conference in the build-up to that fight, was he's going to die for the leg, but it's that worked for him. With Islam, I mean, you saw what he did to Volkanovski and just how he went out there, and even with the staff, I mean, he had the right approach to Dustin to just take him to – he didn't go straight to the ground, and I think he weathered the storm with the boxing, showing that I can use it when I have to. That's what I like about it. I mean, Islam is just more fun is what I'm getting at to watch, I think, than Habib. Now, he's definitely, Habib, all his fights, there was buildup with him, but I don't know. I mean, it leaves me wondering what would have happened at the time if he would have fought Tony. I still think Habib would have won, but God, that would have been so interesting to see. And, now that division it's so crazy, because you've got Arman, who could still kind of avenge Dustin by getting the belt and bringing it back to ATT. It's going to be so crazy to see that fight. Honestly, the whole time Dustin is fighting him, I'm just thinking, I want to watch Arman fight already. But is there anybody you think – do you think Arman, I mean, anybody outside of him can dethrone Islam, or is it going to be his time for a while?
Right now, I mean, Arman is, I guess, the guy, right? Like you said, he looks very good. And I did pick Arman over Oliveira. I typically pick Oliveira. I didn't pick him against Islam. I didn't pick him against Arman. I just feel like those guys are a different breed of human. But Arman should be interesting. Run it back. Islam did win one already. I think Islam's real test is going to be when he moves up. He says he's going to go up and try to be a double champ somehow, something Habib has never done. And I think that's where it starts getting really challenging. Listen, he's challenged. He was challenged by a featherweight with Volkanovski with the first fight. But still, I think he just has so many tools that he can win in many different ways, which makes him stand above and beyond what Khabib's done. If Khabib stayed in the business and kept competing, he seemed like he was getting better as a champion. But he retired in his pinnacle, his peak. And we'll never know, right? But when it comes to Islam, we're gonna get some questions answered for sure. So yeah, Arman at 155 is interesting. I still got to pick Islam.
And I personally, I don't want to see. I guess it's interesting, yeah, if it does materialize, but I don't really feel a strong desire to watch Leon and Islam a fight. I feel like it would just be, I would give the nod in the boxing department to Leon in that fight, but I guess it would be fascinating to watch how Leon, because look, he, for the majority of the fight against Usman, the second time they fought and the first time, really the whole fight, it was the Usman show on the ground until Leon found a way, obviously, to end the second fight. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like Islam is at least more willing to jump up and wait and take that chance. But right now, I mean, I'm just so interested in seeing how it plays out with Arman. And I don't think, Charles, I just don't see him beating Islam if they fight again, which that's an interesting question, is who does Charles fight next?
I tell you, well, first of all, listen, I think Leon's very good. I do. But am I a fan of him? No. And the fact that Leon got wobbled on by Nate late in that fight. He was beating the shit out of Nate Diaz and then got wobbled at the very end. Just goes to show you that, hey, Leon is beatable. And Kamaru Usman, the first fight, basically was on his way to another win against Leon until, headshot, dead shot. So Leon is beatable. And I think that Leon's striking is very good, yes. But I think Islam, man, he out significantly struck Dustin Poirier, which is very, very impressive. And Leon could have his hands full. I think the matchup is fascinating. Now, Bilal Muhammad, listen, we can't look past Bilal. I think Bilal has a serious shot at beating Leon. I know the first fight didn't really go very well, and you had that eye poke and all that, but this is a way different Bilal. This guy's training with Khabib and the boys. Bilal looks like he's in the zone, and I wouldn't be surprised if Bilal gets the upset and shakes everything upside down.
God, that would really turn things on its head, wouldn't it? Because I watched the first fight with Bilal and Leon, and I mean, just, obviously I was left wanting more, but I think people are they're counting him out too soon. And, that fight with Colby was just, it didn't leave me with a good feeling ending it on the ground with Colby, kind of having his way that last round. But it's going to be interesting to see, how it all turns. And all these guys now, of course, want to jump into boxing. Leon is one that I don't know. I don't think I ever see him boxing. But, would you ever see Islam in the ring, any of these people? I wouldn't have said 5 years ago that anything like that would happen. But now, you're seeing guys like George Masvidal jumping in there and Nate. Do you think that this is going to be the time where who's one boxer that, my question is going to be, who is your pick for the most shocking crossover fighter coming up in the next year from the MMA world?
Oh my God. I was shocked when they said Chael Sonnen's boxing Anderson Silva. That I was like, what? Where did this come from? Like, that shocked the hell out of me. I don't. There's so many, like, anything's possible now. Like, it's crazy. Did you ever think you'd see the day that Mike Tyson would be boxing Jake Paul? Like, they're apparently tomorrow they're releasing that this is actually happening. Like, they had that little setback, and now they're gonna keep the party moving forward. And nothing would surprise me these days. Ben Askren boxing is insane to me when he boxed Jake. The whole thing is. It's nuts, man. It's a nutty time to be a combat sports fan.
Man, I remember when Ben Askren lost that night, and I went to a concert that evening, and I came home at I'm talking late. I remember it being like 5 o'clock in the morning, and just watching DC roast him after he lost that fight. I remember thinking, I could see Ben coming on to DC's show and having something to say about this. And now they've started their podcast together. I actually think they have pretty good chemistry, but yeah, he had no business. But like Dylan Dennis boxing, what the hell? I don't know. I have my thoughts on, I mentioned Jake Paul's fights before, mentioned him a couple times on these shows, but yeah, I guess I wouldn't be shocked to see, hell, we're seeing news about Anderson boxing Terry Crews, so it's just, it's getting weird. We're going to be walking out to the White Chick song, it's just so strange. But in that one, I'm still going to pick Anderson to win both of those fights. If he fights Terry and he fights Chael. There was some report I saw originally that said he was going to be boxing them both on the same night. I'm just this entertainment era we live in today. But did you watch Chael's loving life right now. He's becoming the I don't even know what the word would be. Not so much of a bad guy anymore, kind of corporate bad guy, but. Did you get a chance to watch the Fury fight when it happened? I can't remember if you did a stream or not for that.
Fury versus what's it called? Usyk? Yeah, we were live. We were doing the UFC fight night and we combined them. And that was pretty nuts, man. Like Tyson, I'm not shocked that Usyk won. But it still was weird to see, right? Tyson Fury catch his first L. I don't
The
know.
ninth.
Like Tyson Fury, it just seems like ever since that Ngannou fight, things have been very different with Tyson. I don't know if he's on the downcline.
That third fight with Wilder, I mean, which also he just got sparked over the weekend, which was tough to watch because, Wilder, that first fight with Fury was amazing. But I started to see something different, it felt like, with Tyson after that third fight with Wilder. I don't know what it was, but it was just like, I think he had kind of gotten that, the Rocky 3 story was starting to kick in where he was really feeling himself. And, he already had the formula for how to beat Wilder. So gets that victory. And then, yeah, I mean, with Ngannou, it was just, and, say what you want about Ngannou, the way things played out with Anthony Joshua, it was on Fury for the way he performed that night because I really think he did overlook him. But never did I think that I was going to see Fury. I thought it was over in the ninth. I mean, I remember watch against Usyk, just seeing his legs give out. I was like, oh, he is exhausted. And I kind of do think he was saved in that moment. But I mean, he showed heart coming back and surviving the rest of the fight. But for your prediction for their rematch, if that, there's a long time from now until December when it's supposed to happen, I have Usyk winning. Is that the way you're leaning?
I mean, I guess you would have no choice, right? In the beginning of that fight, Fury looked pretty damn good, and then Usyk, I mean, man, he just showed that he is the superior athlete at this moment. And yeah, I mean, in a rematch, I guess I would have to go Usyk. But I tell you what, this is the boxing world, right? And if you, according to the scripts that we've been seeing in past, rematches, there's always the other guy wins. We go to a third fight. It just feels like that is what's supposed to happen. So listen, if my back was against the wall, gun to the head, I would have to pick Usyk. But if I'm a gambling man and you're getting Tyson Fury at plus money, I might have to go on over to my bookie, shameless plug, and maybe put a couple of bucks. I mean, I put bucks on the distance in that last fight. I was like, this shit's going to distance. Now I was worried in the ninth. I was very worried. I was like, oh shit, it's over, man. This shit's done. But listen, you give me the distance all day, I'm betting on that shit. But yeah, in a rematch, if I'm placing money, I'm probably going to go on Fury if he's the under, just because it seems like the way the judging has been in combat sports, Tyson Fury should get the rematch win, and then there's a trilogy.
Man, I hope they need to lynch that judge from the Strickland and Paulo fight because that was just, I was falling asleep, desperately trying to stay awake watching that fight, but it was just, and at the end there, I did think that Sean was going to run out after the judge, and then it's like, oh yeah, Trump's there. Of course, he's getting his photo op, but man, that is something that's just the judging in these fights. I mean, I didn't think anything could ever top what's her name, Adelaide Bird, when Triple G and Canelo fought. I mean, one of the worst. That was hard to stomach watching her get to call fights again. And coincidentally, her husband is the one who was the ref for Mayweather and Conor when they boxed. So that family has more baggage than the Clintons because that's just Jesus Christ. But I think that's going to be such a fun rematch to watch just because, they already have the built-in story with, Fury's dad headbutting that guy that week, whatever that was about, no man alive, apparently there's one man alive. And it just, but you can't root against a guy like Usyk also because he's paid his dues and he's conquered every mountain they've put in front of him. It's hard to pick against him, honestly. And that I think if he was able to do what he did in the ninth, I don't know if I see it go in the distance the second time they fight. I mean, maybe Fury's heart holds out and he's smarter in this one and he finds a way to drag it the distance, but still, I don't see it happening that way. And at the same time, I'm very hyped to watch it because there's no way that I'm going to even watch Mike Tyson and Jake Paul because I'm going to be in New Orleans the weekend that's happening. But I mean, do you think that they'll ever, after what happened with the other Paul brother, do you think Dylan Dennis, you'll ever see him box Mike Perry and BKFC? Who do you see Mike boxing next? That's another fight that I can't wait to see, whoever he picks.
I think Mike is boxing what's his Gilbert Melendez, I think. I think that's what they were saying. They're bringing back him. Yeah. They were flirting with Robbie Lawler a little bit, which would have been great. Gilbert Melendez, well, I'm gonna have to go with Mike Perry, after what happened. I was a Melendez fan when he came from Strike Force. I thought he was gonna do some big things in the UFC and then he popped for steroids. But him and BKFC should be fun against Mike Perry. I still gotta lean towards Mike. When it comes to Dylan Dennis, I am good, man. Like, just throw him into some sort of MMA thing or something, some novelty MMA fight or some shit, like misfit MMA fight, or I don't know. Dylan sold me on the Logan fight, like the lead up. I was like, okay, the way he was shitting on that dude's wife, like, or fiance, or whatever you want to call her. It was pretty funny, and then just to lead up, that was so much fun. And then to just completely lay an egg during the event, pulling guard. And I mean, I don't know. He looked so embarrassingly bad that I could never, I don't want to watch another Dylan Dennis boxing match, at least.
That was just, and then it actually led into the fight that I thought everybody should have been into on that card, which was Tommy Fury and KSI, which, I mean, I can't get into these gimmick fights though. I mean, if it's somebody like, even with George and Nate, I don't know. I mean, you would rather watch, Dylan stay in his lane and do a grappling match, or Nate do some kind of grappling match. But I mean, they make so much money that you're like, okay, this is going to happen. But I don't know. I just don't feel like the buzz is really there for some of these fights anymore. Like with Dylan going forward, that explains itself. But even with these veterans, with Chael and with Anderson, I don't know. I don't feel the desire to really watch it now. I will be watching the intergender fight with Craig Jones. That's going to be a hell of a good fight.
Yeah. Craig Jones is a funny dude, man. Talk about a savage that he is, man. He's something special on the mat for sure, and he's funny. He's funny as all hell.
He is, man. And he went on Rogan and was talking about how he went to do some competition and had beers before it. And his buddy told him that, I think if I heard it correctly, his buddy said he was going to drink with him. And then he ended up having water instead. So he's like, oh, shit, I got to fight this guy actually on some his secret juice of his own, whatever beers he was drinking. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm looking forward to more of the the UFC fights, definitely, rather than the gimmicks. But boxing, I mean, it's kind of drawing me back in because that's what Tyson Fury does when he fights. But do you feel like UFC at this point has kind of, not even just them, like with MMA, that's top dog these days over boxing? I feel like I ask this question with every guest, but is that your prerogative?
Well, did you ask Luke this question?
I can't remember. I don't think I did ask him for whatever reason.
Well, I'm not. Listen, we make our living off of the UFC mainly, and then we cover all the other stuff around it, right? So if clearly, I'll go start with saying that we're biased, right? By the way, we have a pick'em league called MMAholes.tv. Go check it out. Go make your picks. But it's centered around the UFC. With that being said, I was a boxing fan when I was a kid. Of course, Mike Tyson was like a hero growing up. Like, this dude was just like he was phenomenal to watch. And I remember everyone getting together for his fights. And then I took a little time off after, he was done and, De La Hoya and all that stuff was done. I was like, I'm done with this. And then when we started covering mixed martial arts, we started jumping back into the boxing world. And fun fact, it was Fury versus Wilder one that really got us into it. Like, we would cover a little Canelo here and there, whatever, but Fury Wilder just it reignited our love for boxing again. And that was so much fun to watch. Where we stand right now, there's some good boxing events, but I don't even think it holds a candle to the UFC because one, UFC financially is top dog right now. We put a post out not too long ago where they actually surpassed everyone, including WWE, where they're just making bank, like billions of dollars. UFC's just killing it right now. So when it comes to their revenue as a business, they're doing phenomenal. Now, as a fan consuming the product, you have all this controversy with Conor. You got crappy fight nights here and there. But still, the reason why I go UFC over boxing is because every single weekend, there's something going on. Even if it's a little watered down, I get to see people get elbowed in the face and get to see some carnage. 12 fights, 14 fights, whatever. I get to enjoy combat sports. Whereas boxing, when the big event shows up, the undercard's a bunch of nobodies. No one really cares. The pay-per-views are through the roof. And then when the main event happens, you keep your fingers crossed and hope it's good. Like what was that last? The Ryan Garcia versus what was his name? Ryan versus Haney.
Devin Haney.
Yeah, that was phenomenal. That was fun to me. That was so much fun to watch. And then you get let down about the steroid thing afterwards, right? So honestly, the Tyson Fury fight versus Usyk was a good time, but still, give me MMA, man. Give me the UFC. I should say UFC. I think it's just in the zone right now.
I agree. I mean, it's something amazing I heard the other day on. I hardly listen to Helwani, but this week I have been, obviously, just because I feel like he's going to be the first one to break any Conor news if it comes out. But he had Savannah Marshall on his show, and she said that she fought on the Conor and Floyd undercard, and it was like 4:00 in the afternoon in front of 30 people, something like that. And then she got thrown out of the arena, didn't even get to stay and watch the fights. And she was a fighter on the card. That's just,
really?
There's so much money.
She got kicked out after she fought? After she fought, yeah. She got kicked out of the building? What?
Yeah. She had to go to some casino or something to watch Conor box because those tickets were so expensive. And, it didn't shock me to hear that because it's, like A-Rod and J-Lo and LeBron are up, front row seats at those things. That's just what's the big problem with boxing is that they're just, so much money but at the same time, the money being pumped into it, I had no idea that Deontay Wilder was even fighting last week. And so when I saw that highlight, of course, it's on Instagram. I'm like, damn, he got knocked out, but I had no idea that he even was lined up to fight somebody. And that the UFC, I mean, they know how to market these things. Dana might say that, oh, we're not about the gimmick fights, but, then you see him posting videos of Conor throwing the dolly through the bus and, he'll say one thing and kind of do the other, and he's had gimmick fights before, but he also puts on bangers that don't even need those promos. They can sell themselves, and that's exactly what I like about the UFC is that these guys are just, they go out there and, even the ones that are the bad cards, you do get ones that are just, you get that one banger on it. And I feel like boxing so much of the time, the entire card is just, I don't want to say garbage, but a lot of the time, yeah.
You don't know who any of these guys are. You have no idea who these people are. At least in the UFC, if you're watching some of the females fight, you get to look at their asses and stuff like that as they're rolling around on the ground. You're looking at these boxers, it's just like a lot of nonsense. And what I really don't like about boxing is the padding of the stats of the records. There's everyone is 32-0. They're fighting each other. They're all fighting tomato cans on the way up. And then when they face each other, it's like this big deal. But let's talk about the Starbucks baristas that they fought on the way up. It's crazy to me. In MMA, it's the same. In the regional scene, they pad the stats, but you're getting in the UFC with 6 wins. So you start to earn your respect while you're going in at the highest of levels. Whereas boxing, it's all this nonsense fluff that's going on. That's why I can't really kill Jake Paul because he's doing his fluff fights with big names. You know what I'm saying? Who are these other people fighting with 6 fights in their, their pro resume? Nobody's, absolute nobody's. So I can't kill Jake Paul for that. And I don't know. I just think the UFC is doing the right thing. I want to ask you, though, with Francis Ngannou taking 2 L's, kind of like one because the Fury fight, I think he won, but regardless, 2 L's. You got Deontay Wilder, who is just taking L after L. It looks like he's on his way out. Why not do it now? Why not have Francis Ngannou, Deontay Wilder, one in boxing, one in the PFL cage? Why can't we do this now? Why can't this line up?
That is exactly. I mean, I'm talking like the moment that I saw that highlight of Wilder going down, that was what crossed my mind, and I may have even said it out loud that, well, Ngannou next, because it's just, why not? If you're seeing Jake Paul talking about he's going to go into PFL and it's not really panned out yet. I don't know if that's contracts are going into it or what, but I absolutely think that needs to happen next, because I don't know now who he would box. I mean, Ngannou would, who do you fight? Ruiz? Somebody like that. I don't see the attraction compared to fighting Wilder. And, maybe Wilder gets a win and then he comes back and, gets a little streak going, but people are already calling him done. And Wilder, I mean, isn't he only is he young 30s or is he on the other side of 35?
I want to say he's 37-ish. Let me double check. But yeah, I think he's approaching 40. He started a little bit I feel like he started hitting his stride later. Deontay, let's see. How old is this guy? Bomb Squad.
God, I couldn't.
Deontay Wilder is one of the most fascinating guys in boxing. 38. Yeah. So Deontay Wilder is so interesting to me because let's be honest, he was never a good boxer. Like an actual boxer, yeah. He wasn't anything spectacular, but he had such abnormal fucking power. Yeah, 38 years of age. The power was so insane. One of the hardest hitting fighters I've ever seen step foot inside a ring. And I mean, it overcompensated for how terrible he was as a boxer, which made him so magical to watch. And when Francis Ngannou came in, it seemed like the perfect matchup. To a hardest hitting guy in boxing, hardest hitting guy in MMA. Let those two fight. Yet the Fury thing happened. It was very strange to me. And now Deontay Wilder, the power might be decreasing a little. You're approaching 40 years of age, and now you got to rely on your actual boxing skills, which are pretty much non-existent. He's going to start a skid here. He needs to, if he wants to keep going, he's got to get some novelty things going, because he's just going to get embarrassed the rest of the way.
Yeah, I couldn't see them selling any other fight with him at this point. I mean, who am I to say that? Sure, but it's where he's at currently. I mean, a Paige Van Zandt fight sells faster than that does, because and I think that's exactly, you nailed it with the skill of Deontay Wilder. I remember people kept saying that. I think the second time he was fighting Fury, it was like, man, I mean, this guy was supposed to be, the beast in basketball. From what I heard, that was, I think, his first sport. And that's exactly what happened with that fight with Fury the first time. Was he was able to just, I think Fury kind of woke up in the moment in the middle of that fight like, damn, he has some power. But that's where he earned fans and the respect, as he got up. And the second fight, I mean, he cleaned Wilder's clock, and I don't think that he ever recovered from that. And that's sad, because it's just some of these guys, you see it in MMA too. Tony Ferguson, I mean, that guy was 2020. That was probably next to, not being able to see families, with the COVID lockdowns, when your dying relatives are in the hospital and, losing your job. Aside from that, Tony Ferguson and Khabib not fighting, worst part of COVID. And it really just, it stifled Tony's career. It sucks, because that guy really, I still feel like Khabib would have won, but you see what happens. I mean, he goes on this losing streak now and, is losing to Patty. I mean, I don't know what to say, because I'm such a Tony fan, and I watched him way before 2020. So it's, I don't know what's left for these guys, but I do think that is the fight. Yeah, and Ngannou fighting Wilder, it makes so much sense at this point. I feel like if they don't, I mean, they're going to maybe get some up-and-comer to try and beat Wilder just to pad his record. I could see them going that direction.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean, I say at this stage of the game, I mean, you're 38 years old. Let's make that money. Let's keep making that money until it runs dry, you know? And padding these, I mean, I don't know. It just feels useless. I mean, maybe you got to get back on the horse and get one back in the W side. You lose to Ngannou, then it looks really bad. I don't know. I say just milk it for all you got. But to circle around with the Tony Ferguson thing, Tony, yeah, remember he cut weight twice to fight Gaethje? Like
Yeah.
he drained his body twice and then went in there and fought a savage like Gaethje. The whole COVID thing was going on. I mean, that could have played a part as well in the demise of Tony Ferguson, the downslide of El Kukui. You know, he was mismanaged, mishandled along the way. And now how do you not have him face Nick Diaz? I mean, both of these guys should not be fighting. But if they're on the same card together, how are you not smashing those two against each other? I've been screaming. As soon as I find out that Nick Diaz was coming back, which I don't understand, but regardless, I don't think Tony should be fighting still. But why not fight each other? They're fighting. It's welterweight, right? Why not smash those two together? Or loser retires type deal. Make it fun, you know, instead of having them split up. It's weird.
God, I mean, that would be fun to watch just because of their names. You know, I think they kind of have the storyline of Tony can avenge his loss to Nate, which, I mean, my God, the fact that that fight even happened was amazing. You know, that's, again, the UFC talking about, you know, we're talking about how he's honest, Dana White, and then goes and moves around an entire card like that. Because Hamza was originally supposed to, as you know, face Nate, and they pulled the plug on that. That was peculiar to see them go with Vicente fighting Nick, but
yeah,
I hate to say it because Nick has given us so much entertainment over the years, you know, with the KJ Noons brawl and the way they have just gone after and trolled and jumped Mayhem Miller. I mean, Nick, and not to mention the fights he's had, I feel like if he loses this one, he's hanging his hat up for good. And I mean, Chiesa, look, he's lost some fights, but he's gone in there against some damn good competition. And I feel like there's still something in the tank for him, if not a title. He's at least going to go out there, and I feel like he's going to finish Tony. So, yeah, I did not understand booking that. I mean, people are probably going to want to watch those fights, at least more than Anthony Smith fights, but, you know, that's not saying much. So it's, I don't know.
Very strange.
I hope, you know, this is, what is that going to be? Do you happen to know the dates of those fights when Nick Diaz fights and Tony Ferguson?
That is, I want to say, hold on a second. Let me double check. That is in Abu Dhabi, right? Isn't that where it's at? Hold on. Let me double check.
Yeah.
It's on
I couldn't
Abu
remember
Dhabi.
if one of them an ABC card or not.
Yeah. I got the Saudi Arabia one coming up. Let me refresh my memory. So yeah, Nick Diaz. Let me get the date on that. Nick is, by the way, how about Joaquin Buckley at welterweight? It's kind of nuts, man. This dude drops down, looks like you could make an argument that he could beat Shavkat. Like, I think Shavkat arguably is he's just going to rise up the rankings and smash everyone, become the champ. And now you got Joaquin Buckley in there, and it's like, holy shit, like this dude could stop takedowns. He could take you down, and his striking is pretty damn good. Man, welterweight's getting pretty interesting. But speaking of welterweight, the Vicente Luque fight, Abu Dhabi. It's in August 3rd in Abu Dhabi.
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, Vicente, that's another one who, I mean, he was kind of on the rise, had some hiccups, but it's going to be so crazy to see how welterweight plays out. I really hope that we eventually get, because you also have MVP and Ian Gary fighting. I'm so interested to see how that one's going to play out. Not to mention, is Usman going to stay at middleweight, or is he going to come back to 170? I don't think I see Usman making a push for the belt again, but hell, I mean, Shavkat, I said this yesterday on another stream on the chat for James something MMA. He has a page that is pretty good, and he's talking about, fights at 170. And I said, Leon, if he ever fought Shavkat, I think that one would go to decision all day. But I don't know. I mean, Leon, we'll see how he does against Bilal. That's going to tell a lot about where he's going for the future. But in that fight, I kind of, just because of how long Bilal had to wait, similar to how long Leon had to wait to get his shot at the title, I'm going for Bilal in that one. I want to rock with him to make some history here. But, there's everybody, of course, this week wants to know about, which this could be the last question for you, because I know we're getting close to the time limit here. But do you see Mystic Mac fighting on June 29th? If you had to say yes, no right now.
Yeah, so we've been dissecting this. The last 3 live streams we've done, we have been on a roller coaster ride of Conor McGregor news. And the stream that we did last night, dissecting the image that he posted in the chiropractor, orthopedic bed, wherever the hell he was, with a big goofy grin on his face, we've determined that he will be fighting. We are very, very confident that he will be competing. I know even yesterday was a roller coaster ride, because Ariel delivered whatever news he knew, which wasn't much, to be honest. It was mostly a hunch. But then when Conor dropped that image, this is how I look at it. I think he had something go down, a tweak, an injury, something happened, and they had to say, okay, I got to go to the doctor to check this thing out. Fuck the press conference. Let's push that back. Let's make sure I'm good to go. Went through the hoops of doctors. Doctors probably like, yeah, it's a little tweak here and there. You'll be fine for the fight. And then when they found that information out that we're a go, I think the UFC started pulling the stuff. I think they started leaning into this. Everyone's talking about this situation. And then in a couple of weeks, probably next week, we'll see Dana White jump on social media and say, I told you, you don't listen to the media. You don't listen. If we say it's a go, it's a go. Dana's going to pat himself on the back and say how great the return of Conor McGregor is going to be. So I think it's a mixture of something went down, turned into a publicity stunt. Conor will compete at UFC 303.
I agree. It's crazy for the record to think about. Number one, he had, let's be honest, Conor sold 10,000 tickets for this press conference. I heard, this is according to Helwani, because I heard him say this the other day when I was listening to his show. And they announced this press conference, a week ago, but it doesn't change anything not having the press conference. I mean, and they also, I don't feel like Conor's press conferences are quite the same as they used to be. I mean, I'll give anything to just not see Michael Tony Robbins Chandler posting these motivational quotes on his page anymore. I think Mike Chandler is actually a good guy. When I first got Instagram, it was strange, but his profile when he was still back in Bellator, looked at my Facebook, or not, my Instagram stories numerous times. And I messaged him on Instagram to see if he would come on the podcast, like before he even had fought Tony and Dustin and all these people, Charles. But yeah, I get the sense that some of it is like, Conor, injured or not, he's had some calculated moves along the way, playing mind games with Mike Chandler, but Mike knows what he's getting into. He's wanted that red panty night, and there's no way at this point this fight can't happen. And I'm happy to see it happen for Mike. I mean, he's paid his dues in every fight he's been in. Same as Dustin. Dustin, I think he deserved the fight against Conor because, I wanted him to beat Islam, but I never saw him beating him in that fight. Whereas with Conor, I was like, he has a chance. He definitely has a chance to beat Conor, and probably will. And he did twice. So I'm so excited for this summer of fights coming up. Everything but Nick Diaz fighting. God bless. That one is just, but like I said, him and Anthony Smith, those are the only two I can do without. Shout out to Michael Bisping and the Believe You Me podcast. You are great, Anthony. I don't know, but No, all jokes aside, man, thank you so much tonight for doing this because you're the best in the game doing this right now. I don't need to, I get on the what's his name, the Wade concept, and he's cool, but he's kind of like I think he's tame when he does his show, whereas MMA Guru is the complete opposite. But I feel like you have more knowledge than a lot of these guys who are doing this and just want to be streamers who are out there, and you have some experience too in a gym. It looks like you're not just a sausage, as Patty Pimwood calls them. So I love your show, man, and this was definitely a treat for me to have you on tonight. And one of these days, man, I would love to do another. And your lives, I will definitely be tuning in for as many as I can. You'll catch me in the chat for sure.
Awesome. Well, listen, man. Hey, I appreciate coming on here. I appreciate you supporting us, and we're live constantly on the MMA Holes YouTube. Like I said, 8 years strong doing the channel, and nothing can stop us, baby. We're just all the way to see at the top, like Michael Chandler said, right? All right.
Yeah,
man.
from bidets to the impromptu chocolate strawberry pitches, not always mutually exclusive. It's you guys offer something that I think is very rare in the martial arts streaming world because you got to put a little humor into it, and it's what I think a lot of people don't get with Rogan. It's like, hey, have your thoughts on horse dewormer, but the guy brings you the best of both worlds with the comedy and with the violence. So you guys are doing your own thing, and I love to watch it blow up. And yes, I will absolutely be tuning in for every video I can, brother.
Thank you very much. All right, man. Thank you. And to your audience, make sure you support this man, okay? He's grinding out here, okay? So share this, like it. Where are we going to see this thing? On YouTube? Where is it going to be at?
This will be on YouTube, and I'm getting back to putting stuff on Spotify also. So like wherever you stream, not just Spotify exclusively. And yeah, Postgame podcast is what this show is called. My other one's called LGD podcast, stands for the Lights Go Down podcast. And I've been doing podcast and stand up about the same amount of time since 2017. I started in my parents' basement with, a crappy Dell laptop that I think I probably spilled beer on, whatever happened to that, God knows what. But humble beginnings, man, because you guys, 8 years of doing your shows, it makes me feel some sort of validation to have you guys on. And I try and change it up, instead of, having people like Luke on, who I know it's going to be CBS corporate speak. You guys really come on and you give it from your heart. And I think that's what people love. So this will be out, yes, tonight. Look out for it on YouTube. Promo will be dropping tomorrow. This has been the Glorious Hole podcast.
All right. Well, listen, this is probably my most tame appearance I've ever had on a show. So you lulled me into this beautiful conversation. So credit to you for taking the animal out of me. Next time, I'll be sure to bring my A game, okay?
Absolutely, my brother. Hey, you brought your A game tonight, man, and I appreciate that happening in my empty apartment once again because my girlfriend is strangely enough out of town right now. So it's I love it, man.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it, and be good. Okay.
You too.